So Morgan, you've just played some shows in Europe tonight. You're kicking off a handful of shows across the UK. Obviously, back in March, you played for thousands of people in arenas in London, Glasgow, and Dublin as part of C2C. Yourself, Priscilla Block, and Tiara Kennedy were representing Introduce in Nashville. So, based upon your experience of performing in the UK and Europe so far, what have you taken away from this? How are the fans responding to your music?
Well, I got to say, everybody's super respectful. I've said it before, they listen like a sober crowd, react like a drunk crowd. You know, I was in Amsterdam the other night. You could have heard a pin drop. It's great.
You're from a small town called Floyd, Virginia, and your parents divorced when you were 5, so you would spend a lot of time with your grandparents.
Yep.
I've heard you say that on Friday nights you would regularly sit on your grandfather's lap and listen to live bluegrass music. He bought you, was it a fiddle from a very young age, and then put you in lessons which turned out to be classical fiddle lessons, which you didn't take to, right?
I wasn't a fan of the classical violin, and I did it for like 2 years or something like that. Hated every minute of it, but I continued with that, and then ended up picking up the guitar.
And that was around the age of 10 or 11. Did you take lessons or were you self-taught?
I took lessons for like, a couple months, something like that, and then I just wanted to know the chords so I could write songs, and so, yeah, not very long. I can't read music, but...
Okay. Interesting. Most of the best can't, you know that. Yeah. I believe you started writing songs around the age of 7, but you believed in your own head that you couldn't sing because of experiences where kids your age would say that your voice was strange.
Yeah, I was told my voice was weird, so I didn't sing for anybody else. It was just something that I did at home, very secretively, and wrote my own songs. And, I enjoyed it, so I was like, I'm not going to stop doing it. I'm just not going to do it for other people, just for me.
And your grandmother, she passed away when you were 13. She died of cancer, and she very much encouraged you to be yourself and not listen to what other people say. Do you think ultimately your rebellious spirit and your work ethic sort of was born out of her attitude?
My grandma was a spitfire, but I can just remember her telling me, like, don't worry about anybody else or try to be like anybody else. She always let me be me, and so I would definitely say a lot of that came from her. She was a very tough woman.
And you performed live for the first time when you were 19. You were at college studying medical sciences, and you went through a breakup, and because the guy that you were seeing played music, that sort of motivated you to join a band that you found on Craigslist.
Yeah, a very safe thing for a 19-year-old girl to do.
Yeah. God knows what way that might have turned out. Yeah. A very significant moment in your life and career was you were playing a festival back in Floyd, and Jason Isbell and the 400 unit were on the bill. His sound engineer came over after your set and asked you for some music that you recorded, and you handed him something, and a couple of days later Sadler Vaden, Jason's guitarist, got in touch. Tell me how it went from that point to then him writing with you and then ultimately producing the album.
Sadler and I just clicked. He sent me a message, and we hopped on a phone call, and then like a month later I went out to Nashville and we sat down and just kind of threw some songs back and forth. And he saw my vision for things. He didn't want to put me in a box and make me something that I wasn't, and it just felt organic. It felt really good, and so we ended up just starting to write, and we recorded some demos, at his house. We didn't have any money or anything, from a label yet. And as that went on, the demos started going around, and that's how I got a booking agent and a manager, and then, the record label. And then we kind of went from there, and then we made Reckless, and we put it out.
The first song that you guys worked on together was Wilder Days.
It was, yeah.
I love that story that you were recording your vocal at his home, and he just had you saying, the words Wilder Days over and over again.
Yeah.
And he was off in the distance making tacos.
He was
and
making dinner.
Every now and again he'd lean in and go, do it again, do it
Yeah,
again, do
yeah.
it again. So, from the original creation of this song to now what we know it as, and that moment whenever it was done and you guys took that 11 o'clock at night drive to Jenny's Ice Creams, and he was blasting it, when you were listening to it, were you thinking, okay, I'm so over this song because he's had me sing it that many times, or were you thinking, this is my sound, or could you foresee even that this would be the song that would take you around the world?
In that moment, I just knew. I was like, all right, I'm proud of what we've done. And, looking at Sadler, he was super excited, and he was happy. And I was like, I don't think I had really had anything else in my mind other than, okay, this, we've made a really good song right here. And I'm really happy about that. I didn't believe that it would get me, to where it's at or make it to country radio. I don't think that was in my head, but, just knowing that we had made something we were really proud of, I knew that.
I think my favourite song in your album is Take Me Away, and I believe it's the favourite of your preacher back home, weirdly.
He's a fan of that song. My sister played it for her Sunday school class, so yeah, a lot of kids singing Take Me Away.
And Paul Ebersold was a co-producer on the album with his rock background. Do you think that's where that sort of gritty edginess comes from in your sound?
I liked how, both Paul and Sadler had such different, inspirations for things. They come from such different backgrounds. And I was glad to go in there and work with someone that, Sadler's like super big Tom Petty guy, and then you've got, Three Doors Down, Sister Hazel, all that with Paul Ebersole. And so, it wasn't just like going in, sitting down with like a country engineer and doing like the same thing. Like these guys had all these different ideas, and I think that's what made it so cool, is there was just like so many like, let's try this, and it wasn't your typical record.
And another significant moment was when you were in the first grade and you discovered the music of Elvis and became obsessed. Again, when I listen to your voice, there's a real soulful sadness, and obviously you get the same in Elvis. Is that what drew you to his sound?
Yeah, I was just like, remember seeing Elvis for the first time and just being like, who is that? Because he's such an electrifying guy. And I just really connected. He was just so different to me, like unlike anything I'd ever seen. And for some unknown reason, that little first grade kid just like super connected with Elvis, and just, he was different. And that was like my main takeaway. And I just immersed myself in anything that had to do with Elvis.
And you're looking forward to seeing the new Baz Luhrmann movie?
I am so pumped to see that movie. I am, yes.
It's notoriously difficult to sort of carve out a niche and survive in the music industry. Country music's difficult. To be a female within country, from what I observe, is very difficult. So to now be at the point where you're opening these massive shows in the States for Brooks and Dunn, Luke Combs, Chris Stapleton, how does that feel?
No, it's great. To have, these artists pick me and want me to come out with them, like that's an honor. Especially like Brooks and Dunn. That's crazy. I grew up listening to those guys, and yeah, it's been incredible. Especially, for them to, take a new female artist out and have her opening these shows. I think it's great.
And just very finally, when you were at college, you worked in a gym, and I know you like to hit the gym as much as possible. You say it's good for your headspace and to maintain your sobriety. You've just mentioned to me you've just been on like 11 flights in a very short period of time. To do a gig and then you come off stage and you're buzzing, is it difficult to not fall into that trap of like, just, because I would be like, get off stage and like, I want to drink.
I'm actually, today marks 5 years sober. So yeah, no, there's some times, but man, I'll be honest with you, I'm so tired that I'm just like, I'm ready to go to bed when I get done. I'm not a night owl. I'm a morning person. So, so far so good, which I'm glad. Like that's what I want happening. But I've got a good group of guys around me to like keep an eye on me and everything too. So I'm feeling pretty supported.
Listen, Morgan, I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for coming to Belfast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.